all right, I shouldn't make this video. I started this 3 times in a way that tried to not be mean. I really respect fellow developers, and I understand the struggle of making a game under any conditions, especially during the pandemic. But originally, I thought Microsoft was just going to buy Activision and let Activision be Activision, and we would just continue on. But clearly, that's not happening. We'll get into that in a sec. But my two questions are: one, I guess there's 3. One, does Microsoft know how to make Call of Duty? Does anybody know how to make a Call of Duty? And if you were going to restart and reboot Call of Duty from the ground up, what would you do differently? What would you want to see out of it? Now, the first part is, again, I thought Microsoft was just going to take over Activision and then just let it run. But clearly, they've replaced a bunch of people. Not clearly, some of those people needed to be replaced at the upper levels that were into the shenanigans. And then some they just replaced. I don't understand why. And then cutting of the staff and everything else is pretty drastic because they're not just cutting overlap of bean counters. They're cutting production people. And they just recently had, yesterday, this is kind of the impetus for wanting to talk about this finally, was they cut some more people who are part of the process of making Call of Duty, right? There's a bunch of studios that make it. And it made me think, do they not know how to make Call of Duty maybe? Right now, to be clear, Call of Duty right now is a mess. You load up that game, it is like 17 games in one. You have to reload the game like 17 times as well. Like, I don't know. I don't know, right? Like, there's a lot going on there. So it's a mess of its own. But if you look at Microsoft's history of what they bring when they buy a studio, I mean, I think sometimes it's the studios are probably in a good spot of like, hey, we should sell out because we've lost our way. And what the hell? That's a lot of money. And then Microsoft comes in and just doesn't make it better. I don't know. Could you have made a better Halo? I mean, the last Halo I struggle with. Again, God bless everyone who worked on it. You worked on it during the pandemic. You tried it. Well, did not click for me. Did not seem to click for the community the way that Microsoft had hoped, right? I'm not trying to say anything's bad. I want to be clear on that. I'm not calling games bad. I'm just saying expectations and ratings versus what expectations were, right? I mean, I think we see this as well with Redfall, a game which, man, I so wanted to love that game and did not meet people's expectations. And, again, like some of these games have already been in the works for a long time. I mean, Starfield, I think Starfield was started before games and were on computers, and it was just cavemen sitting around with stones around fires building games because that game had been in production so long. So like their influence wasn't on that. That was a Bethesda product, right? And yeah, they did fine. It is a Bethesda game. So, I think some they've done well with. I think the Psychonauts 2, like, I think what they've done with Tim and the team over there have been fine. Like, there've been successes. And I think they've been smaller. When they're bigger and they get their hand in it, and I get the feeling that they put some of their structure in, which is a manager of managers of managers of managers of managers of managers of managers of managers. Oh, look, there's a person who does the work. Becomes problematic. And so can they make a Call of Duty, I think is a question. And then does Call of Duty know how to make a Call of Duty? Like there's a part where Bobby Kotick had to be like, hey man, we may be losing our way. Let's sell. Sure. We'll take your money. We'll get out of this and then blame the downfall on someone else. Like that's a classic move. And I think this latest one, I don't know. The latest one did not perform to expectations, especially in single player. Is that on Microsoft's meddling and wanting to have a new one out right away? Or is that Activision wanting to do that? Right. Some of that is scheduled. That is not teams, man. Teams work their butts off. I will not say anything bad about anybody working on that game. They worked their butts off, but they were given a really short schedule to work on it, where, they probably could have used some more time. And again, man, you cannot discount how much remote work has impacted studios. I get it. You're going to call me an old man for saying remote work, blah, 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 blah. But there's efficiencies that happen when everybody's in the same place working together that is lost. And all the teams have faced that. All the teams faced the big delay from COVID and now still being remote. And so, that could have played into that. There's a whole bunch of things, right? Again, a bunch of people working really hard. That's a lot of people, really big teams. So, I guess question one, does Microsoft know how to make Call of Duty? Do we have faith that they know how to make a Call of Duty? It's not been in their wheelhouse to make those kind of games, and their attempt to make Halo competitive game didn't really pan out, and kind of take it to a different place. I'm trying to think of something else that they've done that's been similar, and I can't think of it. I'm probably missing something, and I feel bad. But so there's that, right? Because like think about how big studios, the studios that you consider big, like Riot, right? Riot gets built by League of Legends and now Valorant, and Valorant's like the exception, right? Well, they have other games. Those are the two you talk about, right? Valve, Counter-Strike, and then they added Dota. But right, like there's like this big game that they're really good at making, that they know how to make. You can get in an argument with me later about Counter-Strike 2. I'm not going to argue that of the history of Counter-Strike till now. All right. But most of the studios that I think of like that have this big kind of tentpole that keeps them alive. That is they're really good at. I'm trying to think of the success of somebody buying somebody like this and then still being able to pull that off and execute at that level. And I think it's really hard. I think some of the passion's gone. I think Call of Duty now already the passion. Those guys have been long gone, right? The founders, Vince and Jason. But obviously still some of the team there. But like, so, I'm going to be interested to see if Microsoft has the ability to pull it off. And then the other question is, okay, you're in charge. You're in charge of the Call of Duty team. You have an unlimited budget. What do you do with Call of Duty? What is that? Like, to me, that is a noisier, it's a noisy PUBG without the goofiness of Fortnite is one product. I don't know what the single player campaign is anymore, and I don't want to say bad things about it, but it did not take what I thought it was going to take, and I was really excited for the DMZ version of missions and bringing it into single player and opening it up like a Tom Clancy Wildlands. I know I say that game all the time, but still, right? So what does it become there? What do they come with those other game modes? The zombie one doesn't do it for me. I appreciate it, but it's not my thing. Like, what is it? What is its identity now? What is it? Is it become too many things? Because like Fortnite's trying to be everything as well, right? They're trying to roll everything into one game. And I think what they lose there is that everything that gets rolled into that, like the Disney announcement and all the Disney stuff coming in, we're going to have the most generic version of Mickey Mouse in a shooter ever. Sorry, but it gets sanitized so far down because their audience is so big and it's so many demographics that it just ends up kind of getting watered down, and it's part of it. And I think I see that as a negative. They see that as a positive because it's the genius of how big that game is right now. Who am I to talk about these games being bad? I'm not saying they're bad. Just some things hit with me or don't. And again, I don't pick on them. I don't care. They can exist even if I don't like them. But I've just been thinking a lot about Call of Duty and what does Call of Duty mean to Microsoft. And it's a packaged good of like, here is Call of Duty. We can sell it. It's got a bunch of players. We're going to make a lot of money. But at its heart, what is Call of Duty? And what is Call of Duty to Microsoft? And I don't know if they know that. Like, what is it? What is it? What is it? What is it like just meaning to them? What is it? What's it? What's it? What's it scratching? What's it itching? What's it taking care of? And I know like the team, a bunch of people over there play games. They have an understanding, but like, what does that mean to their catalog, to their need, to their, what place is that filling in their heart of like liking games? And I don't know. Cause I don't know. Like, I didn't understand Halo. The latest Halo, I really didn't understand. So yeah, those are my two questions. I'm kind of curious because I don't have a perception of what other people think of this. Of like, do they think Microsoft, it's fine, they'll make another Call of Duty, it'll be great. It doesn't need to change. It's fine what's going on or not. So as always, let me know in the comments. You collectively are way smarter than me. I just asked the questions and probably shouldn't ask this one.